Finally, Dennis's favorite manhwa has been adapted into an anime. It reminds me of the days when I would eagerly wait for each new chapter every Wednesday night at 10 on the story vlog, as well as those intense combat scenes with the sneaky gang. Alright, enough rambling, let's get into the show. Episode 1. 3 years ago, there was a war between a fleet of ships and monsters on a certain island. However, their assault was completely futile as their weapons couldn't harm the creatures at all. Now, they could only rely on the hunters. A large number of hunters gathered to face off against the giant ants charging out from the forest. Their entire force attacked with both physical and magical means, but nothing worked. In the end, almost all the humans were torn apart and devoured by the swarm of ants. At that moment, a seemingly powerful hunter appeared, struck down an ant, and then used healing magic to completely heal all the wounds of those attacked by it. When the entire swarm of monsters leapt at him from behind, his teammates arrived just in time to save him. They easily knocked away each monster one by one, since this was a group of S-rank hunters. A larger monster appeared, seemingly the leader of the pack. The group of hunters split up on when to heal those who were seriously injured, while the rest joined forces to attack. The orange-haired guy rushed in to hold the monster's claw tightly, while the guy with the scarf leapt down from above, firing electric bolts from his clawed weapon at the creature. Then, he let the other guy break off the remaining claws and finish it off with a throw, hurling the claw straight through the ant's body. But it seemed that wasn't the leader, because right after that, a whole swarm of them appeared, crawling everywhere. The orange-haired guy strained himself, boosting his strength so much that half of his hair turned white. Meanwhile, the other guy kept firing bolts of lightning from his clawed weapon to provide support. Deeper inside the island, there was another large group of hunters also facing off against a swarm of ants just as numerous. Among them was an S-rank hunter who waved his hand and unleashed a fiery blast that incinerated all the smaller ones, while the rest would be dealt with in close combat. Rewinding time to more than 10 years ago, a passageway connecting to another dimension suddenly opened. Inside this gate existed countless bizarre monsters, and those who awakened combat abilities were called hunters. Hunters are classified into ranks based on the amount of magical power within their bodies. The power of those who have awakened becomes fixed, so no matter how hard they try, their abilities will never improve. Returning to the present, in Seoul, South Korea, these people are all low-ranked hunters gathered at a construction site, preparing to raid. Currently, if things go smoothly, being a hunter can earn a lot of money, so quite a few people choose this profession. The young man with many wounds on his body is Sung Jin-woo, who was greeted by everyone as soon as he arrived. But it's not because his strongest nickname is the weakest hunter of mankind, so weak that just entering an E-rank gate leaves him injured and hospitalized. So, if he's present, everyone knows that today's raid will be at the lowest rank. Seeing that Sung Jin-woo was injured again, this girl, Joo-hee, was very worried. That's because it was just an E-rank dungeon, since everyone else who entered was of a higher rank. From the start they didn't bother to call for a healer. As a result, he was the only one who got hurt badly enough to be hospitalized, but Sung Jin-woo doesn't blame them, since after all, it's just because he's too weak. It's time to begin the raid, and a man named Song Chi-jun will take on the role of leader for this expedition. The main character also has a good relationship with the leader uncle. As soon as everyone was ready, they all entered the dungeon together. With Sung Jin-woo's income, at best he could only afford a dagger with a little bit of magic power. The job of these hunters is to sell the resources they collect from the dungeon for money. Jin-woo had just killed a goblin and picked up a magic stone from it, but while he was distracted, another goblin suddenly jumped at him and attacked relentlessly. After dodging, Jin-woo charged at his opponent and stabbed with his chipped dagger, but unfortunately, it broke at that very moment, resulting in him taking a stab from the goblin right in the stomach. Another older hunter had to rush over to save the young man, who was already lying on the floor in a pool of blood. Joo-hee quickly came over to heal him. The pain gradually subsided. Sung Jin-woo could only lie there and watch as the other hunters took turns slaying the monsters. Magic stones that drop from high-ranking monsters can even be transformed into powerful weapons and armor. Mana or mind from dungeons can also be used in a similar way, but it's less effective than magic stones. However, the government's intended use for them is as a new energy source safer than nuclear power, more efficient than hydroelectricity, and without the air pollution caused by thermal power. The government is promoting methods of generating electricity from mana ore and magic stones, rare resources that only hunters can collect. The Hunters Association had just joined forces to defeat the dungeon boss this time. Joo-hee reminded Sung Jin-woo that if he keeps going like this, something serious will happen one day, since he's always injured all over. She didn't want to hear any apologies, she was just genuinely worried about him. Everyone had finished collecting all the loot from the monsters. There wasn't much mana ore here, so the harvest wasn't really worth the effort. In the end, Sung Jin-woo only managed to get a single E-rank magic stone. Suddenly, someone discovered an underground cave leading to a very deep passage. Could this be a double-layered dungeon? The leader informed everyone that when unexpected situations like this occur, we must seek guidance from the Hunter Association. However, many people argued that if they just left it, it would be like leaving the best part for those who come after. After all, it's just a D-rank dungeon, not too dangerous. So the leader decided to put it to a vote. The number of people who wanted to continue and those who didn't was tied at 6 votes each, with Joo-hee choosing the option to stop. Only Sung Jin-woo was left to cast the deciding vote. The protagonist knew very well that a D-rank dungeon was too dangerous for him, but after his father passed away, he was the only one in the family capable of working. Sung Jin-woo really needed money to pay for his mother's hospital bills and his younger sister's tuition, as she was about to take her college entrance exams, so his decision was to go. The scene shifts to the Hunter Association. Newly awakened hunters sit and wait to be evaluated to determine their rank. They just need to place one hand on the black crystal, and their stats will be displayed. Immediately after that, the hunter guilds waiting outside will rush to recruit those with potential to join their companies. A bag-snatching incident has just occurred on the street. Just as the two thieves thought they had gotten away, a girl suddenly blocked their path right in the middle of the street. In the blink of an eye, she shot up, snatched the bag from his hand, and returned it to the victim, causing the two guys to sprawl out on the road. This stunningly beautiful and incredibly cool blonde girl is none other than S-rank hunter Cha Hae-in. Getting to meet their idol in real life, everyone stayed behind to ask for a photo. Cha Hae-in leapt up onto a lamppost and then just bounded away. Back with the other group, 40 minutes had passed since they entered the cave. The gate will be sealed 1 hour after defeating the boss, so there are still 20 minutes left. Sung Jin-woo apologized to Ju Hui because she had to go deeper into the cave just because he agreed, but she said she didn't mind. As if that's believable. It's hard enough for you to even say you're bothered. You just recovered, and now you're being reckless against such a blockhead. It's thanks to a B-rank healer like Ju Hui that he's managed to survive until now. She punished Sung Jin-woo by saying, "Next time, you have to treat me to something that will amaze even a saint." They had arrived at the boss's chamber, and there was even a strange door, making the danger all the more apparent. But since they had already come this far, everyone decided to go in anyway. At the Hunter Association, this man is Gu Gun-hee, the chairman of the association, who is saying a few words to the newly awakened hunters. Some of you may become hunters, but there will also be those who choose a different path. It has been more than 10 years since the first gate appeared, yet there are still many mysteries. Being a hunter is a profession where you stake your life, so you must never let your guard down. Sung Jin-woo's group entered the room when suddenly the flames flared up. All around them were countless giant stone statues that looked very old and worn. What captivated the protagonist was the largest statue there, sitting majestically on a throne with a crown on its head. There were no monsters, yet an unsettling sense of dread filled the air. At its feet was a magic circle. On a statue resembling the Grim Reaper, an ancient inscription described the rules of the Temple of God. Rule 1, show respect to God. Rule 2, praise God. And Rule 3, you must believe in God. Ju Hui suddenly became frightened, grabbing Sung Jin-woo's sleeve because she had just noticed that the eyes of the large statue were moving, watching them. He thought she was just seeing things, but suddenly the door slammed shut, locking the dungeon tight. Everyone started to panic. One person, who from the beginning had disagreed with the idea of coming in here, angrily decided to leave, ignoring the others searching for treasure. Unexpectedly, the gatekeeping statue moved on its own, swinging an axe and decapitating him along with a chunk of his body. Immediately after, the statue returned to its majestic, imposing posture just like before. Everyone was terrified, their faces pale as they screamed. Sung Jin-woo couldn't believe his eyes when a D-rank hunter died so suddenly after just one blow. How on earth could monsters of this caliber appear in a D-rank gate? Only now did he recall what Ju Hui had said earlier, and he turned, trembling, to look at the largest statue. Sure enough, it was true. The statue cast its gaze in this direction. Up until now, Sung Jin-woo had stood on the brink of death countless times. Sometimes he got separated from everyone. Other times he was trapped in a labyrinth and nearly starved to death. Hunters would use the money earned from magic crystals to buy equipment. The stronger the monster, the greater the rewards it dropped. But all he had was a cheap knife and a pair of worn-out shoes. Day after day, he kept gambling with his life like that. Perhaps it was thanks to always carefully observing his surroundings to survive that he could sense when danger was approaching. That's why he was able to warn everyone to get down in time. Sure enough, from the statue's eyes shot out two terrifying attacks like meteors, scorching a long trail on the ground, and one person was burned to ashes. Fortunately, Sung Jin-woo managed to grab Ju Hui and roll them both to the ground just in time. However, she had already fallen into a state of extreme panic. No one knew why this terrible thing was happening. They were trapped inside and couldn't escape. This was the moment the protagonist realized he was going to be killed. Level 2. Witnessing the horrific deaths of two people in the group threw everyone into a frantic panic. The leader, Song Ji-jun, did not allow anyone to move because if they did, it would attack again. Fortunately, thanks to Sung Jin-woo's realization, otherwise everyone would have been killed just now. But he didn't actually realize anything. He just sensed the danger and then suddenly noticed that one of the leader's arms had already been burned to ashes. At the moment, Ju Hui's spirit is very weak, so Sung Jin-woo has to bandage the wound for him in her place. Because of her fragile state of mind, even though she's a B-rank hunter, she only ever takes part in simple raids. The leader has participated in B-rank raids 2 or 3 times before. Even though they tried to think positively, they couldn't deny one thing. This creature must be S-rank. According to the rules of the temple inscribed on the stone tablet, those who do not follow the laws will not survive. Could it be that the god mentioned there is actually this statue? Sometimes, what awaits behind those gates can be ultimate monsters. Beyond sheer terror and bordering on despair, Sung Jin-woo's younger sister, Jin-ah, is being asked by her classmate about her brother. Jin-ah says that he is just an E-rank hunter who always comes back covered in injuries. Her friend is interested because she also dreams of becoming a hunter and believes she could do better. Leader Song Chi-jun wants to calmly find a way to escape instead of confronting it. But another person argues that it was hard enough to sign a contract with a big guild, so there's no way they're going to die here. He is very fast and believes he can kill it before it kills him. But unexpectedly, as soon as he moved a short distance, his entire body was instantly blown to dust by just a flash from the statue's eyes. It could easily kill everyone without any effort, but it doesn't, which is completely different from the weak monsters that only know how to charge straight in. Sung Jin-woo immediately asks what the first rule on the stone tablet is, and the leader replies that it is to respect the god. He realized that this dungeon had its own set of rules, so he risked everything and forced himself to stand up, sweating bullets just to get on his feet, when suddenly the statue's eyes flashed with a beam of light. He quickly bowed his head, and sure enough, the light was extinguished and nothing happened. Having figured out the problem, Sung Jin-woo immediately told everyone to kneel before the statue because it wouldn't attack as long as our heads were kept low, in accordance with the rule of showing respect to the god. Everyone followed his instructions and the statue's eyes became lifeless again as before, but in return, its mouth twisted into a bizarre, utterly disgusting smile. Seeing that nothing happened, another person bravely stood up and moved and was not attacked either. Everyone else stood up as well and breathed a sigh of relief, thinking they had finally survived and could return home. However, the main character knew it wasn't over yet. Sure enough, the statue suddenly sprang up from its throne and began striding step by step toward them. The second requirement was to praise the god, so one person in the group took on this task. Because he had studied folk culture, he had learned hymns of praise to offer to the Lord. He began to kneel down, clasp his hands, and recite scripture. The god's movements gradually slowed and stopped right in front of him, but perhaps Sung Jin-gu realized that these were not the right words to praise this god. The statue once again bared its disgusting teeth in a grin and crushed the young man under its foot. Blood flowed everywhere, terrifying everyone and causing them to flee. Anyone so frightened that they couldn't move would be utterly destroyed beneath its feet. Sung Jin-gu had to grab Ju-hui's hand and pull her along. He didn't want to die here, especially since today was his first day back as a hunter to earn money to take care of his pregnant wife at home. It seemed like just staying away from that giant statue would be safe enough, but it wasn't. A soldier statue behind them swung its weapon down, slicing a person cleanly in half. The main character was still trying to think of something to say to praise that demon disguised as a deity. Yet, another person had their arm chopped off and half their body sent flying. Sung Jin-gu observed the surrounding statues and saw that they were all holding spears, axes, hammers, swords, and musical instruments. He immediately shouted for everyone to run to the statues holding musical instruments. Everyone had no choice but to follow, one by one. As they ran closer, those statues suddenly started playing music and were not attacked at all. Sung Jin-gu and Ju-hee stood in front of one, but it wouldn't play, which meant that two people couldn't stand in front of the same statue. So he ran to another spot, leaving her there. Sure enough, the statue started playing music and Ju-hee was safe. She had found the nearest statue holding a musical instrument. Jin-gu tried to run at full speed toward it, but the statue caught up and stomped down. Luckily, he managed to dodge just in time, but he accidentally jumped to a spot in front of a statue without a musical instrument, and as a result, it drove its shield straight down onto him. Ju-hee burst into tears, screaming Jin-gu's name, but he still wasn't dead yet, struggling and crawling to get out of there no matter what. The giant foot of the statue was right above his head, and after it came down to the ground, a long trail of blood appeared. But luckily, just in time, Sung Jin-gu managed to drag himself over to the statue, and it began to sing. He escaped death while the giant statue returned to its seat. Ju-hee anxiously ran over, only to be shocked to see that the long trail of blood was actually coming from his leg. Jin-gu had his leg severed by the shield-wielding statue earlier. She tried everything she could to treat him, but even as blood sprayed all over her face, nothing worked. Now everyone started arguing again, as the person who first suggested moving forward suddenly turned around and blamed the leader for making an unwise decision. Leader Song Chi-jun had no choice but to take the blame. Suddenly, the large statue raised its arm, causing the entire dungeon to shake violently. From the center, an underground altar rose up. According to mythology, it was used to offer treasures or sacrifices to the gods. They continued to reason, moving on to the third rule: you must have faith in the gods. Immediately, the first person to suggest continuing deeper into the cave drew his sword and proposed sacrificing the leader, holding him responsible. Everyone was very upset, since this uncle had always been friendly and sociable, but now things had gone too far. However, leader Song Chi-jun still agreed to go there alone. Suddenly, a flame flared up right behind them. So does that mean a sacrifice isn't needed after all? Sung Jin-gu then asked two people to help him inside the altar to check. As soon as the three of them stepped in, three more flames around them lit up. He was worried, wondering if just waiting in here would mean anyone would come to save them. The gate had already been open for a week, and they were certain the monsters would make a move before any rescue could arrive. A gate will fully open after 7 days. This event is called a dungeon break. The monsters will escape through the gate, so the purpose of these raids is to defeat the boss and close the gate before that happens. And if this group fails here, that thing will escape into the outside world. Meanwhile, Jinna is visiting her mother at the hospital. She talks about many things that happened at school today, but her mother just lies there motionless, eyes closed. Sung Jin-gu calls the last two people to come in, and the number of flames that appear is just right. From the altar, a bolt of lightning strikes the ground, creating an additional ring of blue fire encircling the outside. Finally, the door opens, but the stone statues suddenly move closer. Sung Jin-gu surveys the scene and reminds everyone not to take their eyes off the statues under any circumstances, or else the statues will move. However, having to stare directly at those terrifying monsters was too much for one girl, and she was paralyzed by fear. She abandoned everything and ran out of the altar, causing one of the orange flames to go out. This made the door close slightly, but in return, she managed to escape safely. By the way, the blue flames were also gradually extinguishing over time. Sung Jin-woo reviewed the 3 rules, with the third being to have faith. That was definitely a trap, a false hope appearing before their eyes when faced with fear and danger. Perhaps it was testing everyone, forcing them to put their faith in the god. However, yet another person couldn't take it anymore, shoved him to the ground, and ran away. Another orange flame was extinguished, and the gate continued to close a bit more. Jin-woo told everyone not to move, or else they would create a blind spot if they lost another person. As long as they stood still and absolutely did not take their eyes off the stone statue, they would be fine. These blue flames are a timer. When they all go out, we'll be saved. But it's also possible that when they all go out, the door will close completely. The friendly uncle couldn't take it anymore either. Since he still had a family waiting at home, he had no choice but to apologize to everyone, throw away his sword, and leave. Sung Jin-woo was extremely angry, seemingly falling into despair. However, having managed to cling to life so many times before, he still hadn't given up. He was determined to survive. Only 3 people remained. The leader told Joo-hee and Jin-woo to run, since they were both young and still had a long future ahead of them. He would stay behind to hold the door for them. However, because she had exhausted herself healing him, Joo-hee was completely drained and her legs wouldn't respond. Sung Jin-woo immediately told the older man to help her escape first, but Joo-hee wanted him to leave her behind and take Jin-woo instead. In the end, the 3 of them argued with each other. Jin-woo raised his voice, ignoring what the other 2 were saying. He had promised to treat Joo-hee to a meal, so he handed her the magic stone he had found today, considering it his way of buying her dinner. The leader then knocked the girl unconscious and, following Jin-woo's instructions, left with her before the soldiers could get any closer. Left alone in the dungeon, Sung Jin-woo thought to himself that he should have bought a more expensive insurance policy so his mother and sister could benefit from it. With anger burning inside him, he grabbed a sword, determined that if he was going to die, he would at least take one of the monsters down with him. One of the soldier statues began to swing its sword and hurled it straight at him, but it only grazed past his side. Next, another one struck a blow that sent Sung Jin-woo flying. He thought about how someone as weak as himself had managed to survive until now in his own way. He also wanted to become strong, but it was all in vain. They continued to torment the protagonist, severing another arm and finally striking him in the neck. He recalled how the older man earlier had talked about reaching his limit and then abandoned everyone to run away. That was just an excuse to justify himself. You have a family too, don't you? You also want to survive and return home like everyone else, right? In the end, Sung Jin-gu was tortured, enduring excruciating pain to the point that his blood-soaked body was skewered like a piece of meat and then thrown down again. Earlier, he even felt glad for sacrificing himself to save everyone, but that was just lying to himself. In truth, he didn't want to die at all. His body lay on the altar like an offering, and the stone soldier began to raise its sword, preparing to finish him off. Facing death, Sung Jin-gu silently wished he could have just one more chance. Suddenly, a hidden quest called The Courage of the Weak appeared. It asked if you had earned the right to become a player and whether you would accept it. If you chose not to accept, your heart would stop beating immediately. In the end, the accept button was pressed. Episode 3. Sung Jin-gu suddenly woke up in a hospital bed. He couldn't believe he was still alive. His legs were intact and the stab wound in his chest was gone. Could it all have just been a dream? Suddenly, 2 people entered the room. They were the heads of the Hunter Association's monitoring department. The main character was stunned to realize that he had been in a coma for 3 days. After that incident, Uncle Song Ji-joon lost an arm and would likely have to retire. As for Joo-hye, she was undergoing treatment after suffering severe psychological trauma, and it was feared that she would quit being a hunter. Only 6 people survived and returned after discovering this double-layered dungeon. Upon receiving the report shortly after, a guild with S-rank hunters, the White Tiger Guild, arrived at the scene. However, at the site, they only found Sung Jin-woo lying unconscious. As for the temple or the statues of gods, there was absolutely no trace left behind. This was very hard for them to believe. The head of the Hunter Association's monitoring department is speculating that Sung Jin-woo has awakened after already having awakened once, because a hunter's ability value is determined at the moment of awakening and does not change for their entire life. However, there are still rare cases where a hunter can reawaken. They surpass their own limits to rise to rank A or S. Immediately, the main character places his hand on the magic power measuring device, eagerly waiting in anticipation. But what's the point of hoping, only to be disappointed when the result is even lower than the average for rank E? He is not much different from an ordinary person. In the end, the reason why the weakest hunter survived and why the dungeon disappeared without a trace still remains a big question. However, one strange thing is that only Sung Jin-woo can see the system panel right in front of him. At this moment, memories from the time he was killed start to faintly come back to him. It asks something about the qualifications to become a player. Jinna came and scolded her brother. You need to value yourself more, you know. You made me worry to death. She even threatened that if he came back in such a battered state again, she would quit school and start working so he wouldn't have to be a hunter anymore. Sung Jin-woo tried asking his sister if she could see this, but Jinna didn't understand anything and thought he was out of his mind, so she left first. It turned out that this system panel wasn't operated by touch, but by voice commands. When he said open mailbox, a notification appeared stating that he had become a player. The system would support the player's development, and if he failed to follow instructions, he would be penalized. Sung Jin-woo tried to check out the daily quest, which was about strength training. A panel appeared listing push-ups, sit-ups, running, and various other exercises. The countdown timer was still running, but he ignored it, thinking there was no way he could train while bedridden like this. The head of the Hunter Association's monitoring department was reporting to Chairman Wu that Sung Jin-woo had not undergone a reawakening at all. This incident was far too mysterious, completely different from any case that had ever happened before. Chairman Wu decided to treat this as a special case that needed to be reinvestigated. Meanwhile, at the headquarters of the Hunter Guild, one of the 5 largest hunter associations in South Korea, the guild master was assigning Vice Guild Master Cha Hai-in to lead an upcoming B-rank raid. She needed to train the new recruits in field exercises. Cha Hai-in is not confident in his ability to guide, but he believes that she can do it. That evening, during the residents' daily activities, a gate suddenly appeared in the middle of the street, blocking all traffic. The people could only wait for the hunters to come and clear it away soon. After midnight, which was also when Sung Jin-woo's daily quest time expired, the penalty was immediately enforced. Suddenly, a violent earthquake struck, knocking him to the ground. When he opened his eyes, Sung Jin-woo found himself in a vast desert. Turning around, he was confronted by a giant, menacing desert poison-fanged centipede. The objective of this penalty was to survive for 4 hours. 2 nurses entered the hospital room but couldn't find Sung Jin-woo anywhere. Even after turning the whole hospital upside down, they still couldn't find the patient, because our protagonist was busy running for his life in this endless desert. That centipede wasn't alone, there were a whole lot of them, forcing him to run breathlessly for 2 hours already. Sweat was pouring down, drenching him, and his chest could no longer breathe normally. With only 10 seconds left until the punishment was over, the centipede leapt up and caught up with him. In that fragile moment between life and death, the countdown timer finally hit 0. Immediately, Sung Jin-woo returned to the hospital room, lying on the floor panting like a dead dog. As time passed, his recovery was very quick, and he would soon be discharged so his younger sister at home would worry less. Hearing that Sung Jin-woo had recovered, Ju Hai happily brought a basket of flowers to the hospital to visit him, only to overhear the nurses whispering to each other that ever since he woke up he had been going out for a run every day. No matter how much people tried to stop him, Sung Jin-woo just wouldn't listen. Even though he was seriously injured, he really is a stubborn patient. Hearing that, she could only leave sadly and quietly, perhaps because she saw how different he was from her, someone who had suffered severe emotional trauma and was wavering about whether to continue being a hunter. It had been 4 days since he woke up, and every time he completed a daily quest, the protagonist would receive 3 rewards. The first reward is complete recovery, which instantly makes all fatigue disappear. The second is ability points that Sung Jin-woo can allocate to whichever attribute he desires. He mainly invests them in the strength attribute. However, sitting and talking to himself in the middle of the hospital courtyard made people look at him strangely. And the final reward is a random box. These past few days, it's only given out useless items like pens or bandages, but today it produced a key. This is a teleportation key to a dungeon instance which can be used at exit number 3 of the station. The TV is reporting on the current status of the gates today. Just like a weather forecast, a few new D and C rank gates have appeared, among which the B rank gate that showed up at the seaport the other day is now being targeted for a raid by the Hunter Guild. Thinking back to 4 years ago, one day, the mother of the 2 main characters suddenly didn't wake up anymore. She was afflicted with eternal slumber, also known as the final sleep. This illness was discovered after the appearance of the gates, with an incidence rate of about 1 in several tens of thousands of people. Modern medicine, despite its best efforts, can only manage to keep patients alive. Back then, the main character was working as a construction laborer for a terrible boss when his body suddenly started showing strange symptoms. It turned out he had awakened as a hunter, so he happily rushed home to tell his sister that he could now earn enough money to pay for their mother's hospital bills, regardless of how dangerous the job was. But on his very first day raiding a gate, he ended up with a group of difficult teammates. They told him to get lost and stay out of their way, and especially that someone as useless as him wouldn't get any share of the reward. The more Sung Jin-woo thought about those things, the harder he pushed himself to train his body. Right after that, the main character arrived at the station, where the key to teleport into the dungeon instance could be used. He was confident in his ability to escape, so if he ran into danger, he'd just bolt like he did with the centipede before. He held out the key, and suddenly a lock appeared. Sung Jin-woo inserted the key into it, but unfortunately, once you step into the dungeon instance, the door locks behind you and there's no way out. This is a completely different dimension, since people are still going about their business as usual in the station. That means he has no choice but to defeat the boss if he wants to get out. But can an E-rank hunter, all alone without a party, really accomplish anything? As he started heading down, the gloomy, old atmosphere made him feel really uneasy. Suddenly, 3 goblins appeared right in front of him. He had almost died fighting just one before, let alone facing 3 at once. Sung Jin-woo tried to dodge and block their attacks, but after a few moves, he started to lose ground and was eventually knocked to the floor. Desperately, Sung Jin-woo charged forward and managed to stab one of them through the stomach, successfully killing the first goblin. Gradually getting the hang of it, the protagonist took care of the remaining two goblins as smoothly as using Sunsilk. Just as he was telling himself that he had gotten stronger, the dungeon boss suddenly appeared. Its speed was incredible within a flash. It had already crushed his weapon with its steel jaws. Sung Jin-woo was so terrified that he couldn't move. Perhaps his trauma from that monstrous creature was still haunting him. The agile wolf managed to scratch his face. With no healer accompanying him, Sung Jin-woo reminded himself that he absolutely could not afford to get injured. The dungeon boss charged at him again, aiming straight for him, but just before it could make contact, the episode ended. In episode 4, Sung Jin-woo leaps and soars through the air, dodging the attacks of the steel fangs. It took everything he had just to stay alive. He cursed himself, telling himself not to be a coward or tremble anymore, then charged forward and landed a punch right in its face, sending it flying. So this is what happens when your physical strength increases. Just like that, the main character goes toe-to-toe, trading punches with the wolf's jaws. However, its bite is still much stronger. Sung Jin-woo has no choice but to dodge and run away. Without a party or a healer, at the very least, he needs a magic-infused weapon if he hopes to stand a chance against the steel fangs. He immediately summons his inventory, pulls out a sword from inside, and hurriedly slashes at his opponent. And just like that, he successfully defeats the boss. Sung Jin-woo can't believe that he suddenly owns a sword he could never have dreamed of affording before. The wound on his face also heals up quickly on its own. But unexpectedly, two more steel fangs appear. He thought having a weapon would guarantee victory, but unfortunately, the sword gets stuck in the ground and he can't pull it out no matter how hard he tries, only managing to retrieve it when the monsters get close. Sung Jin-woo hurriedly swung an attack, but the wolf's steel jaws clamped down and held it tight, so he followed up with a kick to its body and then used all his strength to slash off its head. Seeing this, the remaining one got so scared it dropped everything and ran for its life. Finally, Sung Jin-woo leveled up to level 2, causing all of his stat points to increase by 1 star each. So, leveling up through actual combat is more beneficial than just doing daily quests. The most noticeable change is his physical strength, because with just 32 points, his body already feels much lighter. But these monsters are really strange. They only drop items like fangs, but never any magic stones. This suggests that the dungeon and the monsters in this system are different from the gates in reality, especially since there's also an item shop. However, Sung Jin-woo's level only allows him to sell items, not to buy anything yet. The fang he just sold earned him 20 gold. While he was still considering his options, a large pack of steel fangs suddenly appeared from the distant shadows. It seems these creatures still aren't the boss of the dungeon. Having already experienced death once, this is nothing to him now. Sung Jin-woo charged forward alone and took them all on. He tried his best to avoid getting bitten and struck as decisively as possible. He gripped his sword tightly, refusing to let cowardice take hold of him anymore. As long as he was still alive, Sung Jin-woo wanted to become even stronger. As long as he could become stronger, he was willing to accept and follow these ridiculous rules. Just like that, his level kept rising, and Sung Jin-woo earned the title of Wolf Slayer. His sword was chipped, and his body was exhausted from fighting off the endless pack of wolves. He also collected quite a few items in his inventory, including a teleportation stone. Its function was to allow him to leave a dungeon midway and return without having to defeat the boss. With this, he could leave right away, but on second thought, he realized there would never be another chance to advance his strength so dramatically. Sung Jin-woo was extremely hesitant about whether to retreat or continue, but in the end, he decided to move forward. Meanwhile, Joo-hee suddenly received a call from the Hunter Association, informing her that the gate from the other day was experiencing a dungeon break. They were gathering freelance hunters to find a way to deal with it, and it was also quite close to this location. Joo-hee's expression suddenly darkened. Meanwhile, our protagonist was having to face many other monsters from the hidden dungeon. As his level increased, defeating monsters became easier. The color of the text displayed for each monster was also different, seemingly representing their level of danger. White indicates weaker monsters, orange means those that are on par, and red signifies monsters stronger than him. The steel fang beasts he encountered at the beginning used to be red, but now they've turned white, which means he's become much stronger than them. Perhaps because his sensory abilities had increased, Sung Jin-woo could sense that deep below, there was an extremely terrifying monster. Once he reached level 15, it became harder to level up, and his sword was also getting more and more worn out. He decided to follow the seemingly endless staircase of the station down below. Down here, it was no longer a train station, it looked more like an ancient ruin. Suddenly, something shot up from beneath the water and slammed him into the wall at an incredible speed. Now, the sword was broken, that's for sure. Your opponent is the offspring of the venomous Swamp King, the Blue Kasaka. It seems to be a worm, but its name is only at the orange level. Its entire body is covered in extremely tough scales, so hard that even swords can barely pierce through. It attacks with its physical body at extremely high speed, so the only way is to neutralize its defense. But how could you possibly get through that hide? The Swamp King in the first round is also very quick, tearing up the ground to catch you. Its tail has started to swing. If you take a direct hit from that, you're as good as dead. Sung Jin-woo was knocked down into the water, then thrown back up again. The giant snake kept tossing him around everywhere like that. As soon as he looked up, he saw an entire train car flying straight toward him. In that moment, the only thing Sung Jin-woo could do was run for his life. Luckily, he wasn't crushed. Even after coming this far, he was still powerless. Just how hard would he have to try to escape being mocked like this? Thinking back over all this time, Jin-woo had been called the weakest weapon of humanity. At that time, it was Uncle Song Ji-joon who encouraged him to keep trying so he could restore his reputation. In reality, the protagonist had just managed to block a bite from his opponent with half of his sword, but was quickly slammed against the wall by its tail, ultimately crashing through a section of the wall and flying to the other side. Jin-woo himself also felt deeply ashamed of that nickname and his own weakness. But if you become strong and possess overwhelming power, you will naturally gain the upper hand without even having to do anything. You're enough to make the powerless tremble in fear. No matter how smart, quick-witted, or caring you are toward others, kindness can still be easily betrayed. Nothing is as meaningful as strength, so now becoming strong is Jin-woo's top priority. He leaps onto the snake, but is immediately knocked back to the ground. Even so, he struggles to get back up, driven by a determination that he must become stronger. As the Swamp King charges at him again, Jin-woo plants his sword firmly into its armor, grips it tightly, then leaps into the air and strikes another blow at its body. Finally, when the opponent suddenly whips its head around and opens its huge mouth, ready to devour its prey, he throws away his weapon and uses the strength from his muscle shaving allocated all his points to them to grab its head tightly. His muscular strength is enough to shatter the armored skin of the snake, causing it to writhe and slam its head from place to place. Even so, Jin-woo still clings to it without letting go, straining with all his might to press in even harder. After a fierce struggle, he finally succeeds in crushing the head of the venomous Swamp King. Defeating this creature allowed Jin-woo to level up several times in a row and obtain the Kasaka's Venom Fang item. It's a grade C weapon, and in addition, there's also a vial of Kasaka's Venom Gland, which is a grade A item. With the boss defeated, the dungeon will return to its original state. He was transported back to the station, and when he left, strangely, there was no one else around. A soldier came and told him to leave quickly, even scolding him for not keeping up with the news on TV. But when he saw the dagger in his hand, he realized Sung Jin-woo was a hunter and led him to a nearby location. It was a dungeon break that caused monsters to pour out, but most of them had already been taken care of by the hunters, leaving only one remaining. The one that Sung Jin-woo happened to sense over there was actually the boss. The military and hunters were doing their best to fight the monster, while the public stood around taking photos as if it were all real. The healer hunters were desperately trying to restore the health of the tank who was being pushed back. The damage-dealing hunters kept attacking non-stop, but the monster didn't seem affected at all. Since this was an impromptu response team, there was no real coordination among them, and they were also lacking a magic-type hunter. On top of that, their ranks were low. Most of them were E rank, with only a few scattered D ranks. Looking over at the healers, there was only one high-ranked person, a B rank, and coincidentally, that was Ju-hai. However, because of her timid nature, even though she was a high-ranked hunter, she wasn't of much help and was even scolded by those of lower rank. Then, while she was recovering, the face of that statue from the other day suddenly flashed through her mind. A week had passed, but Ju-hai still hadn't gotten over that shock. Anyway, this boss was still weaker than the one Sung Jin-woo had just fought, so he was already prepared to enter battle. In a situation where everything was hanging by a thread and the hunters could no longer hold out, the main character gathered all his strength, took a running start, and hurled the broken sword in his hand straight at the opponent's head with tremendous force. With its tough defenses shattered, the hunters were able to focus all their strength and easily take it down. Someone noticed that something had just flown over. What shocked him the most was that the boss, which even more than a dozen people couldn't handle, was taken down by just a single fragment of a sword. He immediately asked the soldiers who had thrown the knife, and they pointed him to Sung Jin-woo. But when he turned around, Jin-woo was already gone, and Ju-hai had also seen Jin-woo walking away from afar. Episode 5. At the hospital, the nurses have recently been gossiping about that E-rank hunter whose body has become so attractive lately. His face is only average looking, but when he takes his clothes off, wow, it just makes you want to jump right in and drink it all up. When he was first admitted to the hospital, he was just a skinny guy, but he's been working out really hard. It was time for patient rounds, and as the nurse opened the door, she was stunned by the shirtless young man. Per schedule, Sung Jin-woo was supposed to be discharged from the hospital today. She even shyly asked him for his contact information, if he didn't mind. Jin-woo thought they needed it to send him test results or something, so he agreed to exchange contacts. On this morning's news, the special guest was Baek Jun-ho, one of only 7 S-rank hunters in South Korea. A hunter's daily life, when not inside a dungeon, mostly revolves around training. And here's Baek Jun-ho's warm-up exercise. He casually shatters a massive boulder with just one hand, so much so that his staff are used to the training room exploding like there's a bomb going off every day. That was the show Jinhye was watching, but when she realized it was almost time for class, she quickly turned off the TV and hurried to school. Even she herself couldn't believe how much her older brother had changed, especially how much taller he'd gotten. But seriously, developers, why did you draw my Jinhye with such a pointy chin? You guys are really doing him dirty. Today, he had already completed all his tasks, leaving only the running for later. With some points left over from leveling up, Sung Jin-woo started to calculate carefully and decided to split them evenly between speed and intelligence. Just then, he received a call from his landlord asking about this month's rent. He had no choice but to scroll through his phone, looking for a decent job to earn some money for rent. But as an E-rank hunter, no one would ever let him join the higher level gates. He figured he'd have to get his rank re-evaluated if he wanted a chance to enter better gates. But reawakening is already rare, and now, the fact that a hunter can level up and get stronger would definitely attract attention, so Jinwoo needs to avoid standing out as much as possible. So, he jogged straight to the construction site, conveniently completing his daily quest along the way, because even missing just one quest means having to face a penalty. These are the people who will be teaming up to raid today, and one of them even recognizes Sung Jinwoo by his nickname, the weakest human. In reality, they just need him there to make up the numbers. No one really cares about an E-rank hunter, because this dungeon is ranked C, and the requirement is at least 8 people, with more than half of them being C-rank hunters. Since he won't be participating in the fighting, he won't get a share of the loot, but they did agree in the contract to pay Sung Jinwoo in full for helping them meet the required number of members. All he has to do is carry the luggage and the first aid kit for everyone. Hearing this, Jinwoo is surprised that there's no healer, but for a small, individually organized raid team like this, it's very difficult to recruit a healer. That's why they've always set out like this until now. In fact, the contract even states that they are not responsible for any accidents that occur inside the dungeon. This flashy kid starts introducing himself as Ju Jinpol, 21 years old, a D-rank hunter. For a D-rank to have gear like that, he must be the rich kid of some big shot family. He even tries to reassure Jingu, saying that he'll protect him so his first time entering a C-rank dungeon will be safe. The kid asks if Jingu's backpack is heavy, then tells Jingu not to be so polite since he's younger than him. This time, the entrance seems a bit too big, making everyone doubt whether it's really a C-rank dungeon, but the association already sent investigators to check twice, so it should be correct. Actually, the size of the gate doesn't matter much. What's important is the level of magical energy leaking from inside. The association will assess it to classify dangerous dungeons. Only large guilds are assigned dungeons ranked B or higher. The whole team has started to go inside, but strangely, it's pitch dark in here and nothing can be seen. Normally, dungeons always have luminous stones. A rookie like Ju Jinpol is trying to remember all the concepts, from magic stones taken from defeated monsters to mana or remind in dungeons, and also the luminous stones used for lighting. They had walked quite a long way, yet there were no monsters at all. Sung Jingu closed his eyes and sensed a faint sound coming from somewhere. Could it be that some kind of creature is gathering in the dark and will rush out when it sees light? He immediately shouted out to inform everyone that the monsters were of the insect type. Now everyone was truly panicked because the sound was growing louder and more intense, but no one knew which direction it would come from. As Sung Jingu tried to focus and listen, he discovered that a whole nest of ants was pouring down from a hole above. The hunters quickly shifted into combat mode, shooting down each one. Jinpol stood close to Jingu to protect him. The C-rank leader, who had the provocation skill, drew all the insects toward himself, then divided the team to attack from different directions and gave full protection to the magic hunter so he could gather his mana and unleash a fire spell that incinerated a large number of ants. These people had been working together for a long time, so their teamwork was seamless, but for some reason, there wasn't a single healer among them. Jinpol tried to make up for his own limited abilities by relying on equipment. Even though the whole team worked very well together, the protagonist couldn't help but feel something was off. After they finished off all the monsters, the leader began dividing all the magic stones into 7 equal shares. He even thanked Sung Jingu for quickly noticing that the monsters were coming down from above. However, upon closer inspection, they realized that the ants didn't have sword wounds, nor were they burned by fire magic. It looked as if something had bitten and torn them apart. That means there's still another type of monster here, one so strong that it treats these insects as nothing more than food. Jingu was asking Jinpol if his sword and shield were expensive, and it turned out they really were. The kid's father bought him top quality gear to make sure his first raid would go smoothly. If that's the case, the main character has a piece of advice: be careful. Continuing deeper inside, the path was very long but completely empty, with no other monsters in sight. Jinpol kept asking if he was having a hard time carrying the luggage. The main character, on the other hand, sensed that something was off, since he didn't have to do anything at all but was still getting a generous salary. A team with so much experience but no healer, just filling up the numbers was enough to get this far, yet along the way there were only scattered dying or dead ants, none of them intact. They had to find the boss monster, otherwise the gate wouldn't open. The mage had to create light to illuminate the path ahead so everyone could move forward with peace of mind. They probably reached the boss room when they saw the walls covered in thick, tangled spider webs. Who would have thought that inside mana ore was everywhere? It was truly a windfall. Although it wasn't as valuable as magic stones, just a rough estimate of this amount would be worth billions. The leader was overjoyed to have this much in his hands. His army would surely become even stronger. By then, he would no longer be the older brother always hiding in his younger brother's shadow. Even the team members felt uneasy every time the leader's younger brother was mentioned. Jinpol asked to borrow the contract from Jingu since he was quite knowledgeable about the law. Then he turned to the leader and pointed out that the contract only mentioned not dividing the spoils of battle, while mana ore was excavated material, not battle spoils, so it should also be shared equally with him. The leader smiled and agreed, but first, we have to figure out what to do about that boss monster. After killing the boss, the gate will close, so we have to dig and transfer the mana ore out before destroying it. The only chance to mine is while it's sleeping like this. However, since they didn't expect there to be so much mana ore, the person in charge had left the transport equipment in the car outside. So the leader asked the two people here to keep watch, while the rest of the team would go outside to get the equipment. He even reassured them saying, "It's full now, so it's sleeping soundly. Don't worry, the dog is very gentle, it won't bite." As for me, I laughed and told the two newcomers, who were raiding a C-rank dungeon for the first time, to just trust my words and not worry. Sung Jin-gu began to review the rules, which state that 8 people are required to enter a C-rank dungeon, while this team originally only had 6 members and, up until now, never had a healer. There really should have been someone ready to make up the numbers. Sure enough, just as he suspected, as soon as they left, the leader ordered someone to block the entrance to the boss room. That mage immediately fired a spell, causing rocks and dirt to fall and completely seal off the path. Sung Jin-gu recalled that Uncle Song Chi-jun had once said there were still plenty of people like them around. No matter what incident happens inside the dungeon, the public won't know about it. Since there are no surveillance cameras inside, as long as they kill everyone, there will be no witnesses left. Those bastards lure the weakened to use them as bait for the enemy, then abandon them and run off first. Jinpol couldn't believe that those people actually wanted to kill others just for this meager amount of mana ore, and the tremor just now had also awakened the boss monster. The kid immediately told him to step back, saying he would do something. Jin-gu observed and guessed that the scam group was probably planning to escape through the holes in the wall over there. The C-rank boss had already started to come down, and the difference in rank between the two sides was just too great. However, every time he thought about the nightmare dungeon from before, the protagonist would have to take back his words right away, because this difference was nothing compared to that thing. He told Jinho to leave it to him, then took out Kasaka's venomous fang weapon from his inventory. Episode 6. That group had already completely left the dungeon. The leader's plan was to wait until the spider had eaten its fill and fallen asleep, then they would take the mana ore outside. They also weren't allowed to use magic to open a path, as that would wake the spider again. He had observed that there was a shortcut to crawl in from the ceiling, just as Sung Jin-woo had predicted, and if the boss monster refused to sleep, then they would just abandon the pile of mana ore and instead take Jin-ho's equipment, which was worth hundreds of millions, enough to make a fortune. He even carefully searched online to find out which wealthy family the kid belonged to, so he could attend the funeral. To be able to defeat a C-rank boss alone, you'd have to be at least B-rank, or at the very least, one of the top fighters in C-rank, so Jinho thought there was no way Sung Jin-woo could pull it off. And that was true. Despite having reawakened or leveled up, he was still very weak. Kasaka's venomous fang in the dungeon instance and even the golem boss were only at D rank, while the spider was much stronger than both of them. Yet, he didn't feel any pressure at all. He had become so strong that he no longer feared his opponents. With that, Sung Jin-woo dashed forward and delivered a slash so swift that it left Jinho astonished. He dodged the spider's attacks from its multiple legs. He tried slashing at its legs, but its skin was extremely tough. The force of a single jab from the spider was so powerful that it could pierce through the ground. Taking even one hit would mean certain death. Sung Jin-woo kept charging forward, attacking and dodging with such agile movements that it was clear he couldn't possibly be just an E-rank hunter. Jinho even thought he might have cheated during registration. Although rare, there were still hunters who could manipulate their magic power to register at a lower rank. Most of them were twisted individuals with a sick taste for killing, which was starting to make him so scared he could wet his pants. No matter how hard he fought, his opponent was too stiff and Jung Jin-gu couldn't deal any damage. The more his fatigue level increased, the more his speed would drop. The special abilities of the short sword, paralysis and bleeding were the key to getting through this stage. He just needed to aim for the weak spot and pierce through. He was about to lunge forward and stab the spider in the eye when it suddenly spat out a stream of acid from its mouth, corroding the ground. Luckily Jin-gu was alert enough to dodge. Even though it was risky, he still decided to use the dash skill, which gave him a speed boost. In a flash, he slipped under its belly, then leapt up from behind, using the cave wall for momentum to dive down, but unfortunately, he ended up stabbing the hard part on the spider's face by mistake. Jin-woo had to quickly jump away from it as fast as possible, then kept taking advantage of his enhanced speed to rush in and deliver countless more slashes. If he didn't finish this quickly, his stamina wouldn't hold out. He was so close, but suddenly the fatigue level shot up to 70, causing Sung Jin-woo to be knocked away from the creature. Now he was facing the boss head-on, as it raised its leg to deliver a finishing blow. But in that life or death moment, a notification suddenly appeared announcing full recovery, allowing him to dodge and then leap into the air, putting all his strength into a sword strike that pierced its eye. As a result, the opponent was inflicted with paralysis and bleeding effects. Sung Jin-woo kept stabbing it over and over, a dozen times or more, and finally managed to defeat the dungeon boss. Fortunately, he had saved the daily quest reward of full recovery to claim later, otherwise, he would have been done for. Jinho was overwhelmed by what he had just witnessed and became even more convinced that Jin-woo was someone who had cheated during registration. He immediately told Jin-woo to keep all the magic crystals from that monster for himself, offered to carry his luggage, even brought him water, and eagerly mined mana ore to present to him just to stay alive. Right at that moment, the group of 6 also returned from the small tunnel above. They even thought that the spider was just big in size, but when faced with Jinho's equipment, it was nothing more than the weakest type. The leader had also just found out online that he was the son of a construction company chairman. So he gave him a chance. If he killed Sung Jin-woo, he would be spared and allowed to join their group. Having been threatened excessively by them and with no other choice, Jin-ho stepped forward in front of the main character, but it turned out he chose to side with him and confront the group instead. With no other options left, the six of them, brimming with murderous intent, advanced to eliminate both of them. Suddenly, an emergency quest appeared before Sung Jin-woo. Kill the 6 people in front of you, or face a fitting punishment. The mage attacked first, firing a blast of fire magic directly at him, slamming him against the wall. The scene shifts a bit to 3 female hunters who are friends, chatting together. One of them is from the White Tiger Guild, while the other 2 are members of the Hunter Guild. The 2 from the Hunter Guild recently had the opportunity to participate in a training session in an A-rank dungeon led by Cha Hein. She is absolutely incredible. Those super powerful A-rank monsters vanished in the blink of an eye. All 3 of them feel really lucky to have joined such major guilds because they've heard rumors that there are other guilds out there with abnormally high mortality rates where someone dies on every raid. None other than the guild that Sung Jin-woo is currently up against. With just one strike from a C-rank mage-type hunter, he was slammed hard against the wall. It was at that moment that the protagonist realized this was a world of deception, violence, and betrayal. Yet, he had been careless and ignored the mission's instructions. His body was gradually becoming paralyzed, and his heart was on the verge of stopping. The system kept urging him to quickly complete the mission and eliminate all the enemies in front of him, or else he would die. As if his death would have any effect on it. Sung Jin-woo was extremely bewildered by the demand to kill people, but he had no other choice. If the system needed him to become stronger, he had no choice but to obey it. Sung Jin-woo realized that the system was taking advantage of him, and he was also taking advantage of the system. With that thought, he approached the group, the shadows around his body gradually spreading out. If you guys are ready to go hunting, then you must also be ready to be hunted, right? One of them walked up, slinging his arm around Jin-woo's shoulders to provoke him, but Jin-woo casually slashed him, sending his head tumbling to the ground, leaving everyone utterly stunned. Because just a second before, he clearly had nothing in his hand, yet out of nowhere, a sword suddenly appeared. What kept circling in the protagonist's mind was that his hands were now stained with human blood, but if he didn't kill, he would be the one to die, so there was no way back. Next, when the 2 of them charged at him at the same time, Jin-woo dodged gracefully, then swiftly stabbed each of them with such precision that they didn't even have time to feel any pain before being hit with a paralysis effect, and blood started pouring out uncontrollably. The crossbowman and the mage didn't fare any better. Their attacks were easily blocked by Sung Jin-woo, and in the blink of an eye, they collapsed dead. It was only then that the leader realized this guy was the one who had killed the dungeon boss. Of course, he himself was also a C-rank hunter and not weak at all. After analyzing the fight so far, he was certain that Jin-woo must be exhausted by now. Plus, Jin-woo's trump card was his speed and the special effects of his sword, but those would surely be countered by his own body, which had been reinforced to be as hard as steel. He tensed his body and charged forward with terrifying strength. Maybe before entering this dungeon, Sung Jin-woo wouldn't have been able to take on the whole team. But unfortunately for him, there was some bad news. Jin-woo had been leveling up non-stop. The leader was easily knocked to the ground and began begging for his life. "I'll split all the money with you." Sung Jin-woo replied, "Weren't you the one who said that whatever happens in the dungeon won't get out?" When begging didn't work, the guy changed his tone and threatened, "Do you know who my little brother is? Come on man, pick your head up before you keep talking." And so, the emergency quest was completed, and the sight of blood everywhere made Jin-ho vomit uncontrollably. Afterward, even the supervisor was left reeling from the outcome of this raid. All the C-rank hunters had died, and the only survivors were a D-rank and an E-rank. She also immediately noticed that all the equipment Jin-ho was wearing was expensive, newly released gear. The reward for the recent kill quest was the Killing Intent skill, which allows Sung Jin-woo to emit a powerful aura that throws his enemies into a state of panic. At the end of the raid, Jin-ho bowed his head to thank the boss for his hard work, but what he was really thinking about at that moment was how glad he was that he had forced his sister to take an umbrella this morning, because it had started to rain. Meanwhile, Chief Go had just received news about the 6 deaths during the recent C-rank dungeon raid. It made sense that D-rank hunter Jin-ho, who had high-end equipment, was able to defeat the boss and survive. But the other survivor was Sung Jin-woo, the very same person who had escaped from the double-layered dungeon incident before, which was quite unusual. Not to mention, among the 6 people who died was Wang Dong-suk, the older brother of Wang Dong-soo, which was truly a cause for concern. When Sung Jin-woo got home, he even bought fried chicken for Jin-ah, which made her absolutely delighted. Now, he was able to fully cover his mother's hospital bills and their living expenses. Talking about the battle the day before, his younger sister guessed that his teammates must have carried the whole team, which was why he came home without a scratch. This made Jin-woo drift into a stream of endless thoughts. That day, he had acted without a moment's hesitation, whereas in the past, he definitely would have run away. Could it be that leveling up had made him bolder as well? But anyway, right now the most important thing is to become stronger for his family. Suddenly, the system displayed a notification that harmful substances would affect his health and lifespan, and then Jin Woo's body was automatically granted a detoxification buff. He went to his room and tried to drink a few more cans of beer, but every time that notification popped up and he couldn't get drunk no matter what. It turned out that this was the effect of the reward from the hidden quest Courage of the Weak, which grants a blessing of immunity to poison and negative status effects, as well as enhanced health and longevity. That was the reward received from the double-layered dungeon, so could it be that the regrowth of his lost body parts was also because of it? That afternoon, while he was sleeping, Jin-Ah came into his room to tell him that someone named Ju Jin-ho was calling. She even scolded him saying, "Drink less beer, or even if you become a doctor in the future, I won't examine you." Jin-ho called his big brother out to meet so he could thank him for saving his life. He still kept his promise to keep what happened that day a secret. The reason for looking for Jin-woo was because Jin-ho wanted to form a team, but he quickly refused, not wanting to mess around with a bunch of rich kids. It wasn't until Jin-ho bowed his head sincerely that he finally agreed to sit down and listen. He wanted to get the guild master certificate, but one of the conditions was to be an experienced hunter, participating in at least 20 raids. Up until now, Jin-ho had studied very hard to inherit the company, so he wasn't worried about the written exam. However, the practical combat part was extremely difficult. Jin-ho wanted to become the guild leader also because of his father's construction company, as his father was planning to establish a guild and wanted to appoint an S-rank hunter as the guild leader, while his older brother would be the vice leader and the guild would operate like a business. But there are only 7 S-rank hunters in the entire country, and the only S-rank hunter who hasn't joined any guild, Min Byung-do, has already retired. That's why his father's side planned to recruit hunters from other guilds, but doing so would only create enemies and resentment. So while his older brother still hasn't awakened, Jin-ho wants to gain experience in order to secure the position of vice guild master for his brother. That's why he wants an E-rank hunter like you to go with him. And if you successfully clear a dungeon together, it will definitely be easier to convince his father, because the true strength of the leader must be at least B rank or higher. Jin-ho shows Jin-woo the building he plans to use as the guild office, with an estimated price of about 30 billion. That's the dungeon raid reward he wants to give to him. Just by helping Jin-ho with 19 more C-rank raids and receiving up to 30 billion, it's simply too good of a deal. However, if Sung Jin-woo can still level up and will soon reach S-rank or higher, then that amount is nothing to him. Moreover, since the leveling system is still unclear, cooperating with others is quite risky. He refused and walked away. At this point, Jin-ho had no choice but to play his trump card. "If Big Bro agrees to cooperate, I swear I'll keep your secret for life." Sung Jin-woo only paused for a few seconds to look at him, then quietly walked away again. At some company, the hunter Wang Dongsu is ordering someone to bring him the files on the 2 remaining survivors immediately. He is filled with hatred, believing that his brother was killed. He even asks her what would happen if he killed someone in a remote place. The secretary explains that if he takes action in a country that has an agreement to prosecute hunters, he will be tried according to local laws. But if it's a country without such an agreement, he will be prosecuted under the laws of his home country. So depending on the outcome of negotiations with the government, the sentence could be reduced. Hearing that, Wang Dongsu feels somewhat reassured and asks the secretary to adjust the guild's activity schedule, hoping that the day he can personally kill those 2 bastards will come soon. Rank D Ju Jin-ho, 23 years old, and Rank E Sung Jin-woo, 24 years old. Today, the 2 brothers of the main character are out exercising together. He asks, "If you had 30 billion in your hands, what would you do?" Jin-ah says she would pay their mother's hospital bills, her university tuition, and save the rest. Since it feels far-fetched, she hasn't really thought it through. After finishing his daily quests, Sung Jin-woo is about to claim his reward when he suddenly notices something odd. The running distance has even surpassed 11 kilometers. He then tries doing 2 more push-ups to test it, and sure enough, the counter keeps going up. So today, he decides to train beyond the set targets to see what happens. When all the numbers have doubled, the daily quest suddenly transforms into a hidden quest. The reward received is a selection of various random boxes. Sung Jin-woo opens the random blessing box and receives a key that leads to the Demon Castle gate with an S-rank rarity. What attracts the protagonist the most is that inside the Demon Castle, he can collect ingredients for the holy water of life which can heal all kinds of diseases with magical power. If that's the case, there's no doubt that Sung Jin-woo will find a way to cure his mother. With that in mind, he immediately heads to the location where the key can be used. When he holds it up, a fierce flame erupts. An S-rank key will open an S-rank dungeon. So, what's waiting inside is on par with the island from episode 1. It's a place where countless S-rank hunters have tasted defeat. But Sung Jin-woo still recklessly turns the key, and very quickly, the gate to the Demon Castle dungeon appears. Inside is the scene of a ruined city engulfed in a sea of flames. The protagonist genuinely feels afraid. He plans to use the teleportation stone he kept from the previous dungeon instance when necessary. The first monster to appear is the Hellhound Cerberus, with its name displayed in red. Sung Jin-woo activates the Wolf Slayer title and the dash skill, rushing at it at lightning speed and slashing deep wounds, but they do absolutely no damage. He activates the level 1 killing intent skill, but unexpectedly, the opponent's roar even knocks off his debuff talisman. Jin-woo dodges the dog's attack, then lunges down and stabs his sword into its face, managing to inflict paralysis and bleeding, but both effects are immediately neutralized. The giant dog lunges forward and bites off his arm, making Sung Jinwoo scream in pain. It then swings him through the air and throws him to the ground, stomping on him so hard that blood splatters everywhere. Not stopping there, Cerberus also uses its rage skill, which doubles all of its stats for 3 minutes. Now it's even more terrifyingly fast. Don't swipe from it, and he's left with only half his health bar. Sung Jinwoo hurriedly uses the status recovery from today's daily quest reward, then rushes forward and stabs his sword into the dog's eye. It shakes its head, flinging him away, then instantly charges at him to attack in a split second. It keeps toying with Jinwoo, sending him flying all over the place, crashing into the city's ruins. Once again, his health plummets uncontrollably, but Cerberus still doesn't stop, continuing to torment its prey. The protagonist's health has dropped to 30%, so the willpower skill is activated, reducing incoming damage by 50%. The hellhound lunges at him again, forcing him to kick up a cloud of dust at his feet to create a smoke screen and hide. System warnings about the level of danger keep popping up clearly. It wants to prevent the player's death. It seems that if the player Sung Jin-jigu dies, the system will have some kind of problem. Now his only option is to use the teleportation stone, but just his luck, Cerberus stomps down hard, making him lose his balance and accidentally drop the stone, which goes flying away. At this rate, he's bound to die soon from blood loss when he suddenly realizes that, at some point, he's been able to buy items from the shop. Sung Jinwoo hurriedly buys 3 of the cheapest potions, but each one only restores 100 health points. Suddenly remembering the A-rank item, Kasaka's poison gland, with no other choice, he pulls it out and gulps it down in one go. The potion helps reduce physical damage taken by 20%, but in exchange, the poison will decrease his muscle strength by 35%. But don't forget, Sung Jinwoo has a buff that grants immunity to harmful poisons, so he's completely unaffected by the snake venom. Just as his hiding spot was discovered by the enemy, it bit him right in the chest. 3 minutes had passed, and Cerberus's berserk skill had worn off. At that moment, the stab Sung Jinwoo had delivered to its eye earlier finally caused the opponent excruciating pain. He took the opportunity to rush in, dodging the other 2 heads, then leapt up and stabbed it hard in the face, before continuing to run around slashing numerous wounds all over their bodies. Finally, when one of the heads managed to catch him, Jinwoo strained his muscles to hold back the dog's jaws, but it seemed useless. Half of the protagonist's body was already inside the monster's mouth, and his health had dropped to almost nothing. His blood flowed out, staining the dog's teeth red, but Sung Jinwoo still refused to give up, forcing himself up to stab once more, piercing the eye of the second head. It writhed in agony, and the protagonist was in just as much pain, relentlessly pulling out his sword and stabbing again and again into the wound in the hellhound's eye. Cerberus finally couldn't withstand the pain from the effect, as well as the blood spraying out like rain, to the point that it extinguished all the fire in a large area. It was defeated, allowing the protagonist to level up continuously, and all of his wounds were just healed. The reward for defeating the gatekeeper dog was the key to open the demon castle gate, along with a few other items, including a recipe for crafting the holy water of life. To craft that water, you need 3 items that can only be found inside the castle, but for now, coming here is more than enough. Sung Jinwoo wasn't foolish enough to rush into the demon castle. He'll come back another day. Episode 8. Sitting in the hospital room next to his mother, Sung Jinwoo quietly thought that if he had this holy water that could cure all diseases, perhaps her eternal slumber could also be healed. He needed to level up even more in order to pass through that gate and hunt for the necessary items. And so, he accepted Jinho's offer from the previous day, but with one condition: only the 2 of them would go, which left the young man bewildered, since at least 8 members are required to enter an S-rank gate. Jin-jigu replied that they just needed to find enough people to make up the numbers, just like how Gwangdong-suk did. We'll try to achieve a record of 19 raids without anyone getting hurt. That will be a solid basis for Jinho's father to recognize our talent. So, he had no choice but to agree and said he would take care of all the arrangements. S-rank hunter Cha Hai-in, after jogging alone around the stadium, was sitting down to rest and drink some water. She immediately sensed that someone was hiding behind her, so she called them out. It turned out that, afraid of disturbing her training, he had been waiting for the right moment to approach her. He was actually the manager of the department. The staff at Yu Junho's father's construction company have something they want to discuss. Ju Junho is sitting across from his father, listening to him impart lessons about the current state of the world. He explains that the organization overseeing hunters is an official body called the Hunter Association. They will rank, register, and manage awakened hunters, handling everything from dealing with gates that fall outside of bidding to responding to dungeon outbreaks. Even so, the association is just an official body. In reality, the ones who bring back most of the resources from dungeons to keep society running are businesses based on the hunter industry, known as guilds. Among them, the Hunter Guild, White Tiger Guild, Reaper Guild, Star Guild, and Knights Guild are the 5 largest guilds in the country. They are the ones who monopolize the profits in the hunter industry. In short, Junho's father could not entrust society's valuable resources to those muscle-brained people. Therefore, establishing a guild was absolutely essential for Mr. Sung Jinho. Today, he once again exceeded the assigned number in his daily quest, but it no longer counted as going over the limit. Now, if he wants to level up quickly, the only way is to wait for Junho to arrange for him to enter a C-rank dungeon. Suddenly, he thought back to the penalty zone from last time. What if he went there to fight the centipede? But it still seemed out of his league, and besides, it might not even give experience points. Suddenly, a notification popped up on his phone saying that a D-rank gate was urgently recruiting members, so he decided to join. Better than nothing. On the other side, Uncle Song Chi-jun also received the same notification. Even though he had lost an arm and probably didn't have much time left to live, he still wanted to dedicate the rest of his life to society, so he had no intention of retiring. As for Juhi, it had been a long time since she last contacted her parents back in her hometown. She had always been shy since she was a child, so being a hunter was difficult for her. On top of that, she was a B rank, a very high rank. Her mother advised her to come back home and help the family with their work. Juhi got upset and raised her voice at her mother, telling her to let her handle her own life. She decided to try a little harder. Back to Cha Hai Inn, she had just returned to report to her guild master, Choi Jong-in, that someone from a construction company had come earlier to recruit her. They were looking to form a guild and invited Cha Hai Inn to become the guild master. Of course, she refused. Thinking back to this afternoon, Choi Jong-in had just had a conversation with Baek Junho, the guild master of the White Tiger Guild, about Jeju Island. After the third raid, we were no longer able to set foot on the island and could only scout from the sea. Everyone is trying to forget about that island, along with the fears it brought. However, Choi Jong-in still couldn't forget what had happened on that island. His goal in the near future is to conquer Jeju Island once again, so he doesn't want to have any rift with Baek Junho's White Tiger Guild. Choi Jong-in needed to strengthen his forces, and at the same time, he guessed that Baek Junho also had things he couldn't forget about that island. The next day, by coincidence, Sang Jin-gu and Uncle Song Chi-jun happened to be at the same gate. In just a few months, the innocent young man he once knew had completely changed, especially since the leg that had been severed was now perfectly intact. He had to lie that his leg had recovered after treatment at the hospital, and Uncle believed it completely unlike his own arm, which was now entirely gone. It was nice to see each other again like this, and even more coincidentally, the 5 members who raided the dungeon that day were now all gathered in one place. The other 2 didn't have the face to look at anyone anymore, since they were the ones who had abandoned their teammates and run away first. Juhi was moved seeing Jingu looked different, much taller and more well-built. At that moment, a prisoner transport vehicle arrived, and when the guys inside saw a woman, they started spewing filthy pickup lines. The person in charge explained that they were substitute prisoners and would be accompanying everyone today. Although they are hunters who have committed crimes, they are hoping to get their sentences reduced, so they won't do anything to anyone. Because there is a severe shortage of hunters in this area, there is simply no other option. In addition, Mr. Kang Tae-wig from the monitoring department of the Hunters Association is also participating. Since he is a B rank, it will be easy for him to keep the C rank prisoners in check. The main character feels uneasy and advises Juhi not to join this trip, but seeing how determined he is to go, she decides to go along as well. The prisoners were finally released from the handcuffs that had been tightly restraining them. Faced with threats from Kang Tae-wig, they didn't seem scared at all. As before, the leader of this raid is Uncle Song Chi-jun. He bowed his head and took responsibility for the deaths of 7 people that day, admitting it was his fault for not protecting them carefully enough. Episode 9. The prisoners were unbelievably strong, supposedly a D-rank dungeon, but they were all C-rank hunters. Today, since Jingu hadn't been injured even once, Juhi was truly relieved. The leader realized that not only his appearance but also his demeanor had changed. They continued forward, and the next section of the path split into 3. Thanks to his increased sense stat, even from this distance the protagonist could sense the boss room was to the left, so he suggested that he, Uncle Song Chi-jun, and Juhi take the left path. The prisoners and Kang Tae-wig took the right path, while the remaining 2 went down the middle. From time to time, Kang Tae-wig kept casting a suspicious glance at Jingu. The uncle in the middle path had decided that after the raid was over, he would bow his head and apologize to the protagonist, because for a bunch of veteran hunters like them to run away and abandon their comrades was truly disgraceful. He also felt very guilty about it. On the right-hand path, Kang Tae-wig was asking the prisoners whether, if these goblins were humans, they would be able to kill them just the same. They replied that if they felt like it, they'd do it. There's no difference at all. He recalled that not long ago, a man had lamented to him about how his daughter had been violated by 3 men, leaving her so humiliated that she hanged herself. His wife was so shocked by it that she had to be hospitalized. Yet, after just a few years, those bastards were released and are now living freely out in the world. All because they were hunters. If they participated in dungeon raids during their sentence, their punishment would be reduced. Burning with resentment and grief, he brought 3 billion won and begged you, bowing his head, to kill them for him. And now, Kang Tae-wig has already come up with the perfect excuse. He'll report to the monitoring department that you all were killed after running into hundreds of goblins. But who would have thought that scene was accidentally witnessed by 2 people from the passageway in between, since the 2 paths were connected. Following the client's request, Kang Tae-wig didn't let them die easily, but made sure their deaths were as painful as possible. After beheading each of them, he then moved toward the other 2. Back to Sang Jin-gu's side, he also remembered that Kang Tae-wig was the one who had visited him in the hospital room that day. Suddenly hearing fierce screams, the 3 of them hurried over, only to be confronted by the sight of prisoners' corpses piled up along the road. But not only that, even their 2 former teammates were on the verge of death, barely hanging on. Ju-hee had to hurry to treat the uncle right away. The wounds were caused by a sharp weapon, with numerous slashes deliberately avoiding vital points, meaning they weren't killed by monsters. The uncle said hopelessly, "Don't bother trying to save me anymore." At that moment, he sincerely apologized to Jingu, then closed his eyes and passed out. Poor guy, just yesterday he was still holding his child in his arms. His wife advised him to quit the dangerous hunter job, but he didn't listen, because he needed money to support his two children's education, and now today, he has to die such a tragic death. Ju-hai burst into tears, while Jungu was so shocked he couldn't say a word. In the blink of an eye, he managed to block a sneak attack from Kang Tae-sik. It almost stabbed Ju-hai in the face. The guy's target was to kill the little healer first, but Chi-jun couldn't believe that someone from the Hunter Association would do such a thing. Now he came up with a very clever scenario. The prisoners killed you all first while I was busy fighting the boss and didn't notice, so afterwards I took care of them when they tried to assassinate me. This way, no one will suspect a thing. Chi-jun immediately asked Ju-hai to cast an enhancement spell so he could face him. They needed to take advantage of the assassin's weak defense in order to have a chance at victory. Although he possessed the abilities of a mage-type hunter, Song Chi-jun was actually the owner of a swordsmanship dojo, so at this moment, he would fight as a swordsman. Song Chi-jun managed to slice his opponent in half, however, it was just an illusion. Even so, for a brief moment, he was able to match the opponent's speed. If he had been just a bit faster, he might have been able to defeat a B-rank hunter even without relying on his hunter abilities. Every time Ju-hai got injured, she would quickly heal herself, which annoyed Kang Taek so much that he rushed in, intending to kill her first, terrifying her out of her wits. But of course, the old man wasn't about to let that happen. Even though he's only a C-rank hunter, Song Chi-jun is the swordsmanship teacher of an S-rank hunter, so he's definitely not someone to be underestimated. However, when it comes to speed, assassin-type hunters are still far superior. In the end, Ju-hai no longer had the strength to heal the leader. But just as Kang Tae-sik raised his sword to finish the job, a sudden blaze of fire erupted and engulfed him. But of course, with all his experience, he easily saw through the old man's plan, so it didn't work. The leader had intended to catch his opponent off guard by pretending to be a swordsman, then suddenly using magic to attack. Just when it seemed like it was all over, the main character finally stepped in to protect Song Chi-jun. When he heard the boy introduce himself as an E-rank hunter, he didn't believe it and thought he must be hiding his true strength. But if he had cheated during registration, that wouldn't make much sense either. So Kang Tae-sik's final conclusion was that Sung Jin-woo must be a reawakened one. Listening to the two of them talk, he finally realized that the person standing in front of him was the same weakling who had been hospitalized that day, yet now he seemed like a completely different person. But the measuring device at the hospital only showed 10 points back then, so did he really reawaken after that day? He then explained all the reasons why he took action against these prisoners. As for the other two, it was simply a matter of killing them to silence witnesses. But Sung Jin-gu thought differently. Based on the numerous wounds all over their bodies, it was clear that Kang Tae-sik had deliberately avoided striking fatal spots so that they would have to endure prolonged torture. This meant that the true nature of this man was that of someone who enjoyed killing. Thinking back to the moment he accepted that father's request, it wasn't out of chivalry. Kang Tae-sik simply enjoyed the thrill of killing people even more than killing monsters. The two sides charged at each other. Since both were assassin-type hunters, their speed was extremely agile and they were perfectly matched. Song Chi-jun could no longer recognize the boy he once knew. Their stats and strength seemed to be on par, but the B-rank hunter had far more combat experience. He kicked a pile of sand into Sung Jin-woo's eyes and then unleashed a flurry of slashes. However, because that murderous intent was directed at him, the system triggered a quest, requiring the protagonist to kill again, or else face punishment. Clearly, the advantage was on Kang Tae-sik's side, but Jin-woo's aura suddenly flared up, completely different from before. In a flash, he managed to slash his opponent's face with a speed even faster than before. The poison effect also began to spread. However, there was still one technique that Kang Tae-sik only revealed at this moment, erasing his own presence to become invisible. The stealth skill allows one to completely erase their appearance, sound, and sense, something only a handful of assassins can achieve. No one knew that Kang Tae-sik could use this skill, because no one who had ever witnessed it had survived to tell the tale. Sung Jin-gu had his ankle slashed to seal away his running speed, which is the greatest strength of the assassin class. The situation became extremely tense, but that was only in the eyes of the other two. Our protagonist had already used a status recovery skill, leaving his opponents shocked. So does that mean Sung Jin-gu isn't actually an assassin class? Sensing the murderous aura radiating from the protagonist, Kang Tae-sik immediately realized that he, too, had killed before, and burst out laughing. They were the same kind after all. He tried to go into stealth and attack again, but to his surprise, Sung Jin-gu used his own killing intent to locate him. Jin-gu activated his killing intent skill, causing a shadowy aura to emanate from him as if it were binding Kang Tae-sik in place. Immediately, a dagger pierced through his chest, bringing the B-rank hunter to his knees. To him, whoever loses must die, so his own death was only fitting. But from now on, you won't be able to keep hiding yourself anymore. Your shadow is connecting with the darkness over there. You can continue to grow stronger, just like the depths of that darkness. But don't forget, every time you gaze into the abyss also gazes back at you. Sung Jin-woo has become stronger than before, but more and more, he feels like something inside him is breaking. The two people whose lives were saved are extremely grateful to him and will leave the dungeon first. At this moment, the main character goes alone to finish off the boss. After that, department head Gu Jun-chan arrived. Actually, he had been somewhat suspicious of his subordinate for a while, but he never thought that Kang Tae-sik would enjoy killing people that much. As soon as they met again, he immediately recognized that Sung Jin-woo was the person from that day. After apologizing for his subordinate, he curiously asked who had killed him. Surprisingly, Song Chi-jun spoke up and took the credit on behalf of Sung Jin-woo, saying it was thanks to Ju Hye's support. Although he didn't really believe it, since Kang Tae-sik was one of the top B-rank hunters, Jun-chan had no choice but to pretend he believed them and didn't question it further. At that moment, Jin-woo finally realized that the man standing in front of him was an A rank, and there was absolutely no way he could defeat him right now. Indeed, just now the older man had saved the protagonist in a very visible way, which could be considered a gesture of thanks to him. The whole group was determined to have acted in self-defense, and afterward, the man who had hired that guy to kill the criminals also turned himself in. At that point, only the two of them were left together. Ju Hye asked Jin-gu if he still remembered this gemstone. Episode 10. Jin-gu had changed a lot, while Ju Hye hadn't changed at all. She had tried to overcome her shyness in her work as a hunter, but in the end, she still couldn't do it. Based on her actual abilities, Ju Hye should have been participating in A or B rank raids, or at the very least C rank, but she only dared to choose D and E. Thanks to that, she got to know him and became the one who always healed Sung Jin-gu. In the beginning, he often got injured, which annoyed her, but Jin-gu was always the one who survived. She would never forget that look in his eyes, so full of will to live. Ju-hee asked to return the stone from the other day because she had decided to retire and go back to her hometown. If one day he happened to visit her hometown, she would show him around. He replied that if that day ever came, he would invite Ju-hee out to eat once more. With that, the two of them parted ways from here. After that, the main character was warned by department head Gu Jin-chan that if he wanted to live long, he should be careful because the younger brother of Hunter Gwang Dong-suk, Hunter Gwang Dong-soo, might target him. Sung Jin-gu couldn't believe why an S-rank hunter would target him. But unfortunately, S-rank hunters are not bound by the law. His existence could be a miracle, but it could also be a disaster. It would be best for Jin-gu to take his family and leave this country. This gave the main character yet another reason to become stronger. Today is the first C-rank raid for Sung Jin-gu and Jin-ho. He always prioritizes hiring people with limited ability to work or those facing difficult life circumstances, and among them is even a child. That girl immediately scolded him, saying, "Sung, you're being so rude. They're proper hunters too, you know, even though they're only E rank and have no experience at all." Everyone is still wondering if it's really true that only the two of them will enter the dungeon, while the rest of us just wait out here and still get 3 million. Jin-ho confirms, "That's exactly right, as long as you don't reveal this to anyone outside. If anyone is found leaking information, that person will be fined 10 times the reward amount according to the contract." At this point, Sung Jin-gu wants to try using the stealth rune stone he received after defeating Kang Tae-sik. The instructions say to crush it to acquire the skill, so he does just that. And just like that, he successfully acquires the stealth skill. As for Jin-ho, he splurges on a set of reinforced armor crafted by a workshop in Italy. Jin-gu gives him a gentle push and he immediately falls flat on the ground. The armor is so heavy he can't even get up by himself. In the end, he has to take it off as Jin-gu suggests, but he still insists on wearing the helmet so it doesn't go to waste. A drunkard waiting outside jeers at them. Just 2D and E-rankers daring to conquer a C-rank dungeon. What a bunch of foolish kids who don't know their place. In class today, Jin-ah doesn't see her best friend Song-yi anywhere. She's probably skipping school again. But little did she know that she was waiting for her brother in front of a C-rank dungeon. Normally, it takes about 2 hours to clear a C-rank dungeon. But unbelievably, Sung Jin-gu's team managed to defeat the boss and make it out safely in just 1 hour. Jin-ho then led the whole team to the next gate, which was about an hour's travel away. If they break through 3 dungeons like this in a single day, each person will earn a solid 9 million. Jin-gu takes care of slaying the monsters, while Jin-ho collects all the magic stones that drop from them. And so, for several days in a row, the two of them kept bringing along 6 dummies each to raid dungeons. Sung Jin-gu's level shot up rapidly. After facing boss after boss, the main character also became proficient in using the stealth skill. Concealing his presence during battle gave him a significant advantage. He also acquired quite a few new skills, such as mastery in blade techniques and weak point strike. However, no matter which skill he used, there was always a time limit for its usage. Sung Jin-gu didn't have enough mana to compensate. Now, he needed to allocate more points to intelligence. Even though his current strength had surpassed B rank, it still wasn't enough to reach A rank. Suddenly, a notification appeared stating that the player had reached the required level to undertake the class advancement quest. At White Tiger Guild, the head learned someone spent 150 million to secure rights to C-rank gates. Recently, whenever a C-rank gate appears, that person will pay double to secure the right to handle it. Even if he's the heir of Yujin Construction Company, there's no way he could waste such a huge amount of money. And surprisingly, his teammate is none other than E-rank hunter Sung Jin-woo. After clearing the dungeon, the two of them were warmly welcomed by the others since everyone else was also free with nothing to do. The girl who was just grumpy the other day now keeps staring intently at her best friend's older brother. The department head from earlier is starting to suspect that Sung Jin-woo is someone who has awakened for a second time. Jin-gu has survived 3 major accidents. The first was the double dungeon. The second was the raid by hunter Gwang Dong-suk. The third was the incident where a hunter from the monitoring team killed the prisoners. That's why he's going to recruit Sung Jin-woo right away. And just as expected, the department head was extremely surprised to find that the people they had hired were sitting around having a picnic. Little Song-yi scolded the men, saying, "This is a restricted area." After talking with the child, he deduced that Hunter Sung had entered the gate by himself without the other members. He must be an exceptionally rare talent. The two of them had no choice but to leave immediately as well. Since Sung Jin-gu has something important to do tomorrow, Jin-ho temporarily put the gate they reserved on hold for 2 days. The scene shifts to a fierce blaze erupting, and the giant ant from Jeju Island is revealed to be the culprit. This guy seemed to be in utter despair in front of that thing, and blood was flowing in streams on the ground. It was the blood of one of his female colleagues. Startled awake, it turned out that what just happened was a nightmare about past events experienced by Choi Jong-in, the president of the Hunter Association. He often dreams about it. On the table was a top-secret file about the Jeju Island reconnaissance mission. Back to Sung Jin-gu, he was approached by the head of the second management department of the White Tiger Guild. The White Tiger Guild is one of the country's top 4 guilds, specializing in recruiting talented individuals. Therefore, he offered to pay double what Yujin Construction Company was offering in order to get Sung Jin-gu to join his side. He thought to himself, how could an E-rank hunter possibly refuse such a lucrative offer? But then he heard that the reward Yujin Construction Company promised him was 30 billion, half the amount it would take to invite Messi to appear in a music video. The other party was now in a panic. He started blaming himself for being too hasty, not even taking the time to check out the other company's offer first. Sung Jin-gu even used his stealth skill to lightly swipe his cheek as a warning. "Stop secretly investigating me." The department head had no choice but to apologize and explain that because someone was monopolizing the dungeons, their side couldn't train new recruits, which meant they also couldn't participate in real combat. That's why he started looking into gate transactions and happened to learn about Sung Jin-gu. The only people who know about the matter between the main character and Jin-ho are just him and the assistant sitting over there. So after being threatened, they promised that the two of them would keep this matter a secret. Sung Jin-gu also apologized for monopolizing the C-rank gates, which was affecting White Tiger's side. He then proposed a deal to sell back to the other party the 3 gates that had already been reserved. If they didn't accept, then in the future we would continue to take all the C-rank gates and sell each one for 300 million. Even though the mana crystals and magic stones in a C-rank dungeon are worth at most only 200 million, but unexpectedly, when they bargained down to 200 million, Sung Jin-gu agreed right away, and so, the deal was made. Afterward, he even told the other party to close their eyes and open their mouth, only to pour a recovery potion in for him, instantly healing the wound he had just inflicted. After this incident, the head of the White Tiger Guild's department finally realized that Sung Jin-gu was even stronger than he had imagined. In fact, the 3 newly sold gates were all ones that the main character's side and Jin-ho had already destroyed. That's why the next day, that guy was dumbfounded when he realized he'd been scammed. Since Yulin Construction Company hadn't bid on any C-rank gates all day, their price was only around 60 to 70 million. Right at that moment, he received a message from Sung Jin-gu saying that this incident should be considered as making amends for him secretly following me. Upon receiving it, he happily accepted his defeat, this time because he also got something very valuable, which was the main character's phone number. Episode 11. Sung Jin-gu was forced to leave the city and go as far away as possible because he didn't know if changing professions would pose any danger to those around him. After surpassing level 40 in his recent raid, he received this class change quest, which was completely different from any previous quests. This time, it allowed Jin-gu to freely choose the location and time, which showed just how incredibly difficult it must be. Right after he pressed accept on the class change quest, the space around him suddenly transformed violently. A dungeon gate surrounded by countless bolts of lightning appeared. Sung Jin-gu stepped inside, while on this side, Jin-ho was sitting at the dining table, feeling nervous in front of his father, because today he had to face his older brother after such a long time apart. The food laid out in front of him looked delicious, but Jin-ho just couldn't bring himself to eat. His older brother informed their father that he had tried to persuade hunters Min Byung-gyu and Cha Hae-in, but both of them refused. But it didn't matter, because he would proceed to negotiate with hunters from Europe and the Middle East. For example, Wang Dongshu from our country is also a hunter who collaborates with foreign guilds. By the way, he also took a jab at his younger brother, saying that he knew his little brother was secretly up to something. The older brother guessed that Jin-ho was buying up all the C-rank dungeons at high prices just to boost his own record. Luckily, he still doesn't know anything about his big brother. The dungeon that the main character entered looked pretty normal, but here, access to the shop and the use of potions were not allowed, and if the mission wasn't completed, there would be no way to escape. Suddenly, there were footsteps from afar, and Sung Jin-gu began to draw his weapon from his inventory. In front of him was an armored-type monster. He dashed past and performed a beautiful sword move, but it had no effect on the opponent. It even turned around and attacked him. Caught off guard, Sung Jin-gu almost didn't react in time. He immediately activated his weak point attack skill, which increases the number of critical hits. He charged in and slashed at it, but its armor was still incredibly tough. He couldn't even make a scratch. All Sung Jin-woo could do was carefully dodge the opponent's relentless attacks. Remembering that this guy was just as tough as the snake from before, he quickly moved behind it, mustered all his strength in both arms, and tore its body apart, successfully severing the head from the torso, leaving nothing inside the armor but a pool of pitch-black liquid oozing out. If only he had done this from the start, he wouldn't have wasted an attack on the weak point for nothing, especially since that move cost a whole 70 mana, and this dungeon doesn't allow for recovery. Sung Jin-woo continued to single-handedly defeat the entire group of knights in armor just like the one before. Just as he was relaxing and about to take a break, he was startled when a monster with a stealth skill appeared from behind him, and it didn't stop there. Another mage joined in, launching a surprise attack by firing a beam of light. Fortunately, his sharp senses allowed him to handle those two situations just in time. The monsters kept appearing, each one troublesome, with 4 different types of abilities. To take on the knight, you need enough physical strength to deal any real damage. When facing the assassin, you have to rely on sharp senses to detect their presence, and with the archer, it's all about speed. But the toughest challenge comes from the mages, since you need high intelligence points to counter them. Yet Sung Jin-woo has invested very few points in intelligence. He wants to save his mana points and not use skills just yet. But if he keeps going like this, his fatigue points will keep rising, so he has no choice but to use them. Now even drinking water is scarce, but luckily, killing monsters sometimes drops water bottles. After obtaining a high-ranking knight's chest armor, Jin-woo tries equipping it. Fortunately, once worn, it becomes invisible and doesn't hinder his movements at all, which is great. Thanks to his recent level up, he's received a decent amount of gold and items, and his fatigue points have also recovered. Moving on to the next gate, it promises that the enemies ahead will be much stronger than the previous ones. As soon as he opens the door, a chilling, terrifying atmosphere rushes over him. He steps inside, causing all the torches to ignite at once. This is a room that contains a throne, as well as a single guardian of that throne. But every sense in Sung Jin-woo's body is recalling the same pressure he felt back in the double dungeon. The one giving him that feeling is none other than the leader of the Red Blood Knights, Iris. Its name is highlighted in a deep red, which means the protagonist pretty much has no chance of defeating this throne guardian knight. It suddenly lunges forward at incredible speed, then unexpectedly swings a blow that slices through a palace pillar as easily as cutting a branch. He manages to dodge the first strike, but the second one is too much for Sung Jin-woo to handle, and he gets sent flying far away. Before he can regain his composure, another swift and clean sword slash comes slicing through. The destructive power is absolutely brutal. On top of that, even though it's wearing heavy armor, its speed is nothing short of extraordinary. For scenes like this, all I can say is that the producers have truly outdone themselves with the action sequences. These fights are absolutely spectacular and visually stunning. Sung Jin-woo is drenched in cold sweat as he rushes in, launching attack after attack, but it's all in vain. He keeps missing, and even when he does land a hit, he can't make a dent in that massive suit of armor. Igris strikes down with his sword from above, unleashing wild bolts of lightning. The protagonist strains with all his might just to deflect the blow, only to be kicked and sent sprawling to the ground. Both sides are almost equal in speed, but the opponent also has devastating power and top-quality armor. This enemy is much stronger than he expected. Now, if he wants to deal any damage inside that armor, his only option is to risk everything and fight barehanded. But unbelievably, this knight is so honorable that when he sees his opponent put away his weapon, he throws away all his own weapons as well. The scene shifts to the Hunter Association's company. From the chairman and vice chairman to many other members, everyone is gathered on the rooftop, getting ready to carry out something. First, Chairman Choi Jong-in makes a phone call to thank Chairman Go of the Hunter Association. Because you approved our operation plan this time, Chairman Go reminded him saying, don't forget that Jeju Island is an extremely dangerous place, so you must be very careful. It turns out that the Hunter Association is preparing for a reconnaissance trip to assess the strength and scale of their enemies. Even now, the third assault on Jeju Island from back then still burns fiercely in Choi Jong-in's heart, never letting him rest. Shortly after, the plane began to take off, carrying all the high-ranking members of the Hunter Association on their mission. Returning to the job change quest, the two sides sized each other up for a few seconds before Igris suddenly lunged forward, striking Sung Jin-woo in the stomach and slamming him to the ground, then lifting him up and hurling him against the wall. Fortunately, Jin-woo managed to defend himself in time, blocking Igris's sudden punch. Igris attacked relentlessly, alternating both hands in a flurry of blows so fierce that the wall behind them shattered. Even though Sung Jin-woo had defended himself, he still lost about 500 health points. Luckily, he had equipped new items, otherwise, taking that hit head on would have definitely finished him off. His attacks weren't effective, so he was forced to activate his speed-boosting skill, darting rapidly around his opponent before suddenly launching a kick, but Igris simply tilted his head to dodge it with ease and countered with a punch. Right after that, Jin-woo managed to push him back a little. He continued to engage in close combat, fighting one-on-one. However, he truly couldn't keep up with his opponent's speed. Igris grabbed his leg and threw him violently, forcing the protagonist to activate his willpower skill to boost his defense. Igris picked up a large rock and hurled it straight at Sung Jin-woo, then, without any hesitation, continued to charge in and land more blows. The fight unfolded incredibly smoothly, with no preaching or pauses for flashbacks, just both of them relentlessly clashing and unleashing their moves. Both their speed and martial techniques were extremely fluid and agile. When Sung Jin-gu was thrown backward, he took advantage of it to launch a spinning kick straight at his opponent's head. This made the leader of the Blood Red Knights furious. He held Jin-gu suspended in midair, relentlessly beating him, then continued to toss him around the room, leaping up to kick him into various objects. Sung Jin-gu truly didn't have a single moment to even open his eyes, let alone dodge the attacks. The protagonist was thrown all the way toward the throne, smashing the wall, and as he gasped for breath, he accidentally ended up sitting on that empty throne. His younger sister at home had no idea what her brother was going through. She still prepared a nutritious dinner and put it in the fridge, waiting for him to come home from work. Back to this side, it seems that Jingu's act of daring to sit on the throne he was guarding made Igris decide to execute him right then and there. He retrieved his sword and swung it down with great force, but the protagonist used a pair of high-ranking knight's gloves with the effect of blocking all damage to his hands. Summoning all his strength, he knocked away his opponent's weapon and quickly drew his short sword, stabbing it forcefully into Igris's eye. While it was writhing in pain, he charged forward with all his might, driving it through the wall. Because the short sword was a non-transferable item, as soon as Igris pulled it out of his eye, Sung Jin-woo immediately ordered it back into his inventory, causing the weapon to automatically return to his hand, and once again he drove it forcefully into the gap inside the opponent's faceplate. He pressed the blade in as deep as he could, triggering a series of critical hits, and finally gathered all his strength for a finishing blow aimed at its neck. A message appears congratulating you on defeating the leader of the Crimson Knights, Igris. Only then did Sung Jin-woo finally have a moment to sit down and catch his breath. This victory was purely due to luck, as he was outmatched in every aspect. 4 rewards appeared, the first being a pouch containing 1.5 million gold. The second was the helmet of the Red Knight. This was the first time Sung Jin-woo had ever owned an S-rank piece of equipment. Next was the Rune Stone, Hand of the Ruler, and finally, what shocked the protagonist the most was the Teleportation Stone. The appearance of this item signaled to him that the class change quest was not yet over. All around the room, a series of small gates suddenly appeared, along with a notification stating that the longer he survived, the more achievement points he would accumulate, allowing him to attain a higher level class. The official timer began counting up, second by second. From within the gates, monsters similar to the small fry in the hallway earlier began pouring out in massive numbers. It wasn't difficult. These creatures emerged endlessly, and however hard he fought, breaking his arms, he couldn't finish them. Since this quest prioritized stalling for time, Sung Jin-woo used his stealth skill. It immediately consumed 200 mana, and then continued to drain 1 mana per second, so he could only use this skill for another 190 seconds, corresponding to the 190 mana he had left. But unexpectedly, things went beyond his predictions when the mage summoned an eye that could see through his stealth. Sung Jin-woo's concealment was immediately dispelled, so with no other choice, he could only keep fighting, and unfortunately took a slash from behind. The countdown timer had only reached 5 minutes, which meant there wasn't even the slightest chance of victory. He had no choice but to use the teleportation stone to escape, but his bad luck just wouldn't end. Right at that moment, the knight suddenly jumped out and struck Jinwoo's arm, knocking the stone out of his hand. How was he supposed to find it again with an entire army swarming him? Just believe in miracles. It seemed like the situation was now beyond saving. Episode 12. There was no other option but to risk his life and fight them to the death. His stamina had reached its limit. He couldn't use either stealth or killing intent anymore. Sung Jin-woo's current level was 47. For someone who had always been stuck at the bottom of society, what other choice did he have now? He couldn't give up his desire. Burning with the desire to reach the top, he used his bare hands to punch the armor with all his might, to the point that his skin was scraped and peeling. His eyes began to blur, and now he no longer had the strength to dodge. Jingu had taken 2 hits to his body. Suddenly, images of Uncle Song Chi-jun and his friend Ju-hee appeared, advising him that it would be better to give up. Then, another personality within him suddenly emerged, questioning why he insisted on choosing such a dangerous path. For an E rank like you, reaching this level is more than enough. Chairman Gu was recalling the 3rd raid on Jeju Island, when his body could no longer withstand the battles. Department head Gu also participated in that raid. He was in charge of communications with the outer perimeter, and many people lost their lives. Those who survived returned with deep pain in their hearts. If we can't overcome those old wounds, the only thing awaiting us is destruction. That other self of the male lead continued to mockingly judge him. You've only changed on the outside. Inside you're still a weakling on the verge of death. After all, an E rank like you can only go so far. A loser who doesn't know himself or others. He had just had his head slammed hard into the ground by the knight, blood streaming everywhere. Images of his former self kept appearing, spouting insults meant to break Jingu's spirit. At this point, the protagonist was truly at his limit. Just as he was about to be finished off by the army in the dungeon, the daily quest panel suddenly appeared, announcing that failure to complete the daily quest would result in a fitting punishment. It was only then that he remembered he had planned to do the class change quest first and complete the daily quest afterward, but he hadn't expected it to take so much time. The whole day had already passed. Fortunately, at the very moment the knight's sword was about to strike, the system teleported Sung Jin-gu to the penalty zone, allowing him to narrowly escape death. It was truly terrifying for the fatigue points to exceed 90 for the first time. He immediately drank a potion to reset his fatigue points to 0. However, he couldn't drink a healing potion because his current health was too low. The only option left was to wait for natural recovery or to level up. At that very moment, the entire swarm of giant centipedes from before appeared, but now their names were only orange. Without hesitation, Sung Jin-woo charged straight in and attacked them. He drove his dagger forcefully into the mouth of one, then continued fighting the rest of the group. Meanwhile, at home, Jinna was very worried. It's so late and my brother still isn't back. Could it be that he has a girlfriend now? All she could do was hope that he would come to the parent-teacher meeting tomorrow. After wiping out all the centipedes in the penalty zone, Jin-woo's health bar was fully restored. Entering the shop to further strengthen his equipment, he bought a rather expensive weapon called the Night Killer, which deals an additional 25% damage to armored enemies. Only now did he take out the rune stone he had picked up after the battle with Igris to try it out. It granted Sung Jin-woo the skill Ruler's Hand, which allows the user to manipulate physical objects without touching them. Isn't that just like when Igris automatically pulled his sword back into his hand from a distance? He immediately tried it on the centipede but found that he couldn't move objects that were too large. There were only 10 seconds left before the penalty zone would end. Sung Jin-woo had no choice but to tightly wrap the bandage around his hand and get his newly purchased weapon ready. That preparation was to face the horde of monsters still waiting to tear him apart in the job change dungeon. Only 4 hours had passed, yet they were already swarming like ants. On the shore, the Hunter Association's helicopter was about to arrive, and the airspace above Jeju Island was being guarded. Back during the third raid on the island, Ta Hyen was not yet a hunter, so she did not participate. The pilot suddenly detected a faint mana reaction over the sea and immediately projected the image onto the screen. Back to the protagonist, wielding the Night Slayer in his hand, he sliced through the armor one after another with remarkable ease, but something felt off. No matter how many he defeated, it didn't seem to make a difference. Moreover, it was unclear what the mages were up to. They kept chanting spells, but no magic was being cast at all. But then it became clear the endless stream of knights emerging from the gate was actually being summoned by their magic. Now it made sense why no matter how many were killed, the experience bar didn't budge at all. It was the mages who needed to be eliminated. He immediately hurled his dagger straight at it, and sure enough, most of the surrounding knights collapsed and died on the spot. So Jin-woo leapt into the air to get an overview and saw that there were still 5 mages left. He called his sword back to his hand and proceeded to break through the encirclement, taking them out one by one. The pile of armored corpses blocking the way kept stacking up, filling the entire room. 2 of the mages had been eliminated, leaving only the last 3. Unexpectedly, these 3 combined their magic and fired a blast at the mountain-like heap of night corpses. They fused together to form a giant golem. Sung Jin-woo swiftly climbed onto the creature and then swung himself up onto the chandelier hanging overhead. He cut the chain, causing the chandelier to crash down, blocking the giant's line of sight. With that, all he had to do was charge straight in and take out the 3 mages to finish it. Suddenly, it swung its massive arm and slammed it down onto the ground. However, the protagonist, quick and agile, managed to dodge and rushed in, delivering a slash that killed all 3. Even though the summoners were already dead, the golem stubbornly kept fighting. Sung Jin-woo had no choice but to muster all his strength to block the opponent with the Night Killer sword. That slash shattered the monster's armor, splitting it open in the middle and causing a cloud of black smoke to burst out from inside. And so, the protagonist successfully eliminated all the enemies within the quest. After completing the task of clearing all the small gates in 4.5 hours, and following a few seconds of thorough analysis, the system displayed a series of lengthy notifications, almost like a hymn of praise, before concluding with the line, "The summoned shadows will become the Shadow Army." Obeying the command and opening the path for the player, Sung Jin-woo had no idea what a dead army actually meant. Startled and shocked, he couldn't believe that his class turned out to be a necromancer instead of an assassin or some other kind of fighter. Because clearly, he hadn't put any points into intelligence, while a necromancer is a mage-type class that specializes in summoning and commanding zombie-like monsters. Luckily, the system even asked if he accepted this class, and the protagonist quickly clicked no right away. However, the system confirmed once again that necromancer is a hidden class. Are you sure you want to refuse? Hearing this, Sung Jin-woo started to feel confused and anxious. In the end, what exactly is this special power? Should I take the risk? Suddenly, he realized wasn't this a summoning spell, just like what those mages had done earlier. Thinking back, ever since entering this dungeon, every fight has felt like a repeat of all his previous battles. So could it be that everything has been orchestrated and this is all a scheme of the system? Besides, there's nothing that says a necromancer can't fight on the front lines, so if he accepts, he'll not only have summoning abilities but also close combat skills. Not to mention, every time he levels up and enhances his skills, his entire legion will grow stronger as well. In other words, he won't be leveling up alone anymore. And the final decision is to press the button to accept the class. After that, based on achievement points, he'll be promoted to a higher class. First, he'll receive extra points for surviving longer than the expected time, and then having more than 50% of his health remaining also grants points. Even not using the teleportation stone will also grant Jin-woo extra points. And finally, there are bonus points for eliminating all enemies. Sung Jin's achievement points have surpassed the class threshold. His entire body underwent a dramatic transformation. So, from the newly acquired Necromancer class, he has now advanced to the Shadow Monarch class. All of a sudden, he changed classes twice in a row. Right after that, he heard agonizing screams, as if someone was crying out in anguish. A notification appeared, asking the player to set a command phrase for the shadow extraction skill. So Sung Jin-gu chose the phrase Arise. Immediately, from within the armor on the ground, a horde of shadow monsters emerged. These creatures had now become his shadow soldiers. Besides knights, there were even mages among them. So what if I could extract the shadow of an A rank or S rank creature? With that thought, Sung Jin-gu immediately stepped in front of Igris. However, since there was a limit to how many shadows he could extract and absorb, he had to release 11 infantrymen. Now there was room to extract the shadow of the Blood Red Knight commander, Igris. He recited the command to arise, causing a black shadow to emerge from within Igris. However, the extraction attempt failed. Each shadow could only be extracted 3 times in total. Sung Jin-gu tried again, but still failed. It seemed that this one's power was simply too advanced. He then asked, "Are you waiting for a king who may never return? You are a warrior, so wielding your sword to defeat enemies should be your true desire. Why would you let your blade rust away in this damp, moldy place? If you need someone to whom you can dedicate your sword, then serve me instead. Just guard the throne of someone whose whereabouts are unknown." Then he recited the awakening incantation one last time. A terrifying darkness spread out, and at last, he succeeded in summoning an awe-inspiring, majestic shadow monster, extracted from the shadow of an S-rank beast, promising to bring forth an extraordinary amount of power. Igris's level was already 7 from the very beginning. It stepped forward and then knelt down. Immediately after, the remaining shadows also knelt in reverence before their Shadow King. Back to the Hunter Association. A short while later, the helicopter arrived at the island. Chairman Choi was truly overwhelmed because this was completely different from anything he had ever seen before. Could it be that they are evolving? And with that, Season 1 of Solo Leveling has come to an end. Please look forward to Season 2, which will be released at the end of this year. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel to support me if you enjoyed it.